Hello and welcome back to the channel and to the video. In this video we're going to look at the Enhanced Fujita Scale and go over who created it and when, and what ratings were used, what damages are associated with those ratings. So, the Advanced Fujita Scale replaced the decommissioned original Fujita Scale that was introduced in 1971 by Ted Fujita. More on that later. It was phased into use in the United States on the 1st of February 2007, followed by Canada on the 1st of April 2013. There is also some talk of it being used in France, but they haven't yet agreed on that, and in the United Kingdom and most of the rest of Europe they don't really use that scale. So the scale has the same basic design as the original Fujita Scale, 6 categories from 0 to 5, representing increasing degrees of damage. It was revised to reflect better examinations of tornado damage surveys, in order to align wind speeds more closely with associated storm damage. It also adds more types of structures and vegetation. It expands on degrees of damage and better accounts for variables such as difference in construction quality. So depending on what part of the US you live in, your houses may be made of bricks or they may be made of wood, and as you can probably guess, wood is affected worse by wind than brick is. So the newer scale was publicly unveiled by the National Weather Service at a conference of the American Meteorological Society in Atlanta on the 2nd of February 2006. It was developed from 2000 to 2004 by the Fujita Scale Enhancement Project of the Wind Science and Engineering Research Center at the Texas Tech University. They brought together dozens of expert meteorologists and civil engineers in addition to their own resources. As with the original Fujita Scale, the Enhanced Fujita Scale remains a damage scale and only a proxy for actual wind speeds. It's very difficult to calculate wind speeds of tornadoes without putting someone in danger or putting equipment in there. So, the original Fujita Scale was set up by Ted Fujita in 1971 at the University of Chicago in collaboration with Alan Pearson, head of the National Severe Storm Forecast Center. The scale was updated in 1973, taking into account path length and width. In the United States, starting in 1973, tornadoes were rated soon after occurrence. The Fujita Scale was added retroactively to tornadoes reported between 1950 and 1972 in the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, the National Tornado Database. Tom Grzulis of the Tornado Projects retroactively rated all known significant tornadoes F2 to F5, or causing a fatality in the US all the way back to 1880. The scale was used for the first time in the United States a year after its public announcement, when parts of central Florida were struck by multiple tornadoes, the strongest of which was rated as an EF5 on the new scale. It was used for the first time in Canada shortly after its implementation, when a tornado developed near the town of Shelburne, Ontario, on the 18th of April 2016, causing up to EF1 damage. Right, so I'm now going to explain the 6 scales and show you footage on screen of them to try and help you get an idea of the size and how their increasing intensity makes them grow. So the damage descriptions given are those used from the original Fujita Scale, which is more or less still accurate. However, for the actual EF scale in practice, damage indicators are predominantly used in determining the tornado's intensity. So, first one you get is what they call an EF0. So it has wind speeds between 65 and 85 mile an hour, or 105 and 137 kilometers per hour. And it gives minor damage. So it will do things like peel surfaces off some roofs, some damage to gutters or sidings, branches broken off trees, shallow rooted trees pushed over, things like that. Confirmed tornadoes with no reported damage, such as those that happen in open fields, are supposed to be rated as EF0 as a matter of policy. However, some national weather services have adopted a new EFU for unknown rating for such those tornadoes. So, in summary, an EF0 will be very, very minor damage. You probably just think it was a windstorm. The next one you get up there is an EF1. So they have their sustained winds of 86 to 110 mile an hour, or 138 to 177 kilometers per hour, and they will give moderate damage. So, a small example of damage would be roofs severely stripped, mobile homes overturned or badly damaged, loss of exterior doors, windows and other broken glass. Surprisingly, you could have a wooden house and it would probably be okay, just a little battered up afterwards. So, as an example, sections of roofing are removed from the home, leaving the internal decking exposed, but it won't blow your house over. It'd just be a bit of a nuisance. Then you get an EF2, which has wind speeds of 111 to 135 mile an hour, or 178 to 217 kilometres per hour, and they will give considerable damage. So, as an example, roofs will be torn off from well-constructed houses, foundations of framed homes will be shifted, mobile homes will be completely destroyed, large trees will be snapped or ripped out the ground, light objects will turn into missiles, so planks of wood will be just deadly to anyone or anything in their way, and cars will be lifted off the ground but not necessarily pulled all the way up into the air. So an example of damage would be, if you got hit by an EF2, your roof will be completely removed from the house. Then you go up to an EF3, which has wind speeds of 136 to 165 mile an hour, or 218 to 266 kilometres per hour, and these will give severe damage. So, as an example, entire stories of well-constructed houses will be destroyed. Severe damage to large buildings such as shopping malls. Trains will get flipped. Trees will be debarked. Heavy cars will be lifted off the ground and thrown, so your big SUVs will get thrown about, vans, things like that. Structures with weak foundations will be badly damaged. So, give you an example, EF5, if your house got hit by an EF3, damage would be, your house would be destroyed with, maybe if you're lucky, a bathroom or something that's an internal room might still be there. And then you start getting up, and at this point, the damage gets quite bad. So you get an EF4, and they have wind speeds of 166 to 200 mile per hour, or 267 to 322 kilometres per hour. As I said, they will be devastating. So, well constructed and whole frame houses will be completely levelled. Some frame homes may be swept away. Cars and other large objects will be thrown about, and small missiles will be generated. So things like trees and telegraph poles will turn into missiles, just fly through anything in their path. If you've got a car, might as well forget about it. And to quote Twister, an F4 will relocate your house quite well. So, as I said, damage for an EF4 would be your house would be completely levelled. There'd be nothing left of it at all. If you live in an area where those sort of tornadoes are prominent, you're probably going to have a shelter, so it wouldn't be too bad for you, but obviously the property damage would be terrible. And then you go up to an EF5. Now these are the big ones. They go 200 mile an hour plus is their winds, and 322 kilometres per hour plus is their winds, and they will destroy everything in their path. So a well-built house will be completely destroyed, and the foundations will just be bare. Even some steel reinforced concrete structures are critically damaged. So if you've got, say, a school and it's brick built, it will still get damaged. Any tall buildings could get blown over by it because it's very, very high winds, or at the very least they'll get some serious structural damage. Cars, trucks and trains can be thrown at least a mile. And to quote Twister again, an F5 will destroy your neighbourhood. So, to sum up F5 damage, basically forget about it. Anything in its path is completely annihilated. Nothing really will stand. Again, if you live in an area that's prone to these sort of things, you probably are going to have a shelter. But if you hear that there's possibility for an EF5, you need to keep your head on a swivel. Make sure that you're prepared to run if you have to. So there's a bit of difference between the new and the old scale, but it's only slight. So as I said earlier, the two different types of the scale, the older one, they didn't really take into account the kind of different structures you could have, whereas on the newer one they do. The wind speeds on the original one were also deemed to be too high, and the engineering studies indicated that slower winds than initially estimated caused the damage. So they looked at it and went, actually this wasn't a 150 mile an hour wind, it was a 100 mile an hour wind. So they changed the rating to match. They also changed the speed for EF5s. So what was called an F5 had wind speeds of 261 to 318 mile per hour originally, and they changed it with the new scale to just 200 mile an hour plus, which tends to generalise and make it easier. Although F5s are kind of rare in the US. None of the tornadoes that were recorded before this new scale were put into place were changed. They were all kept at their original rating. So, since the new system still uses actual tornado damage and similar degrees of damage to categorise each one of the storms, the National Weather Service states the new scale will likely not lead to an increase in the number of tornadoes classified as EF5, because although it may have higher winds, it may not do a lot of damage. So they'll look at the damage and go, it's actually an EF4, even if the tornado was 3-4 miles wide. So, now the video's done, I hope you have a better understanding of the Fujita Scale. And if you're watching this video from the US, as I've said, you'll probably be familiar and heard these terms thrown around on the news or on the Weather Channel, but hopefully now you've got a bit of a better understanding of what they actually mean. So, leave a comment below if you have ever experienced a tornado and what you did, what damage it was, and tell me what you think it was, rating-wise. If you're lucky enough to not have been involved in one, then leave a comment with what you think it would be like. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more content coming up. We have some great ideas for future videos. But of course, if you have a subject that you really want someone to cover, leave a comment, suggest it, and we could do a video on it. I hope you are having or have had a good day, and as always, stay safe. Goodbye.